People say, why do you do it, bird ringing? Well, I suppose the first up answer really is because you love birds, and I love handling them. It's such close contact, it's just beautiful creatures, as far as I'm concerned. The finest sort of life form on this planet, the birds. So that's my view, it always will be. And just having the right to actually catch and handle them is basically a terrific pleasure. And the fact that I'm doing it for the purpose of learning about their lives, getting information about how long they live, where they go, how they move, migration routes. That justifies it. That justifies my pleasure in getting hold of them.
Wilf Norman is the top bird ringer in North Yorkshire, perhaps the whole of North East England. He's been doing it for nearly 50 years and was a co-founder in 1976 of the South Cleveland Ringing Group. However, bird ringing is coming under increasing scrutiny, with some saying it is bad for birds.
I think we've ringed somewhere in the region of about 160,000 birds since then, which isn't a lot by a lot of group standards.
These days he mainly rings merlins on the North York moors. Ringers catch the birds in nets or traps, or take them from nests. Then they clamp metal rings round their legs. They weigh the chicks and measure their wings, which helps tell their sex. Natural England rules mean British Trust for Ornithology ringers have access to rare bird nests via licences issued to them by government environment departments across the UK. Landowners and wildlife managers do not have the same access to these licences.
Not anyone can just do this. You need to train with a qualified ringer for a period of years until he thinks you're capable of having your own licence.
For a lot of the Scheduled 1 species, the landowner can't go and disturb them, or his representative, i.e. the gamekeeper, can't go along to that nest. But at the same time, the ringer needs the landowner's permission. He's got the licence to go and visit the nest, but he can't just use the Open Access, the Crow Act, to go onto that land and start ringing willy-nilly. You still need to be cooperating with the ringers, the landowners, the gamekeeper. Should all be working together to conserve the whole species.
Former senior wildlife ranger for the Hawk and Owl Trust, John Cavana, takes a less hands-on approach to bird conservation.
There's an open front box up at the top where we've had the missel thrushes in. Then in the wall backs and the hedgerows and the trees, we've got open-fronted nest boxes, we've got tip boxes, we've got owl boxes, we've got tawny owl and barn owl on the same hedgerow, nesting side by side. A lot of the smaller boxes have been habited this year, but we don't need to go and push it that much further and say, right, I need to go in there, open the box up and start putting steel rings around the legs. We know they're doing well. So in total, during lockdown in this area, from here, we've spotted over 70 different species of birds. I like to see them nest, hatch and fledge. We create the habitat, we want them to do well, we want them to thrive. There's a fine line between them thriving and us interfering with them.
A bird ringer can approach a Schedule 1 nest, the nest of a rare bird, under licence with up to 2 unlicensed assistants. Gamekeepers and landowners accuse bird ringers of taking large parties of people, including paying customers, to the nests of rare birds. RSPB staff killed an osprey chick when it fell from its nest as they tried to attach a tag to it. Ringing is billed as conservation, but looking at blogs and bird groups online, you can't ignore the spirit of competition and sense of ownership of the birds. Who can ring the most and how far can they go?
One thing I really resent is the fact that as a group, we never had a group bird recovered south of the Sahara. Yeah, never had one. The furthest we've got in Africa is Morocco. I ringed a lot of years ago. We ringed a golden plover chick on the moors here, and that was shot in Morocco the following winter. There's a bird ringer. When you put a ring on a bird, what you're doing is basically giving it an individual identity. You know, that's a unique ring number. But unfortunately, you need to recatch it, or it needs to be refound in order to get some data.
Ringing may be bad for birds, but it has produced plenty of data. Since the BTO set up in 1933, its members have ringed 36 million birds in the UK. The BTO reports 700,000 rings recovered, about 1 in every 50. The practice hasn't changed much over the years. Pit tags, passive integrated transponders, are the only revolution. They're usually fitted as a second ring on the bird's other leg.
Now these are little chips. They're the same sort of chips that go inside your pet. There's the equipment you can buy, which is what's called a logger. It's a ring which goes around the clutch of eggs or the small brood. The bird goes on and it's carrying one of these tags. It will trigger the logger. You can get information back on as far as mailings goes, what proportion of your population's coming back, what proportion of young birds are actually surviving.
When a bird incubates its eggs, it needs to turn and roll them eggs, and quite often it'll use its chest, it'll use its legs, steel rings on either side. We all know an eggshell is very fragile. It can cause false turning, so therefore you get a false incubation or actual damage to the egg. And then the other thing is, with the transponder round, a visible black ring around the nest for the parent bird, it could easily put them off not to return to the nest. And there is evidence that this is happening, which then causes eggs to fail or chicks to starve and die in an inhumane way.
I did try it. I've got the equipment. It's quite. We managed to get it purchased. It's quite expensive. It's sat in my loft at the moment doing nothing because we had a few problems with it, nests failing, and I wasn't too happy with the system. I think the way ahead is, I think ringing it might be numbered really. I think it's rapidly going to be overtaken by this satellite tagging. It's a very expensive process. The tags cost quite a bit, and satellite time, I think you're talking about 2,500–3,000 a shot to put a satellite tag on a bird.
One tag?
Yeah, one tag, yeah.
The ring is technology 100 years ago. We've moved forward so much with the technology. We can monitor the optics that we've got now to film, photograph and see birds are far better. We can see birds clearer now with some of the camera equipment we've got. And we can do that at a distance. We don't need to go in and interfere with the nests.
The days when binoculars and cameras can recognise birds and upload their location and information are not far away. You can already take a photo of a bird, upload to your phone through Wi-Fi, use an app to identify it, and publish the information online. The problem for birds remains. Human obsession and meddling will mean they may die for what bird ringers say is a greater good.